The streets are buzzing, the phones are blowing up, and the internet is about to catch fire, because what started as casual shots fired online between 21 Savage and NBA YoungBoy is now teetering on the edge of something deadly. Two of hip-hop's most notorious young guns are staring each other down, and the tension isn't just in the music. It's real, it's personal, and it's about to explode. Social media posts, cryptic messages, and subtle disses in songs have turned into full-on threats, and both camps are watching each move like chess masters on a warboard. 21 Savage, the Atlanta kingpin with a reputation forged in the streets and polished on platinum records, isn't someone you cross lightly. He's battled ghosts from his past and emerged untouchable, but YoungBoy isn't the type to back down either. The Louisiana sensation has been known to flip a verse into a vendetta, and rumors say his circle isn't afraid to handle business off camera. When these two forces collide, it's not just bars, it's bullets, beef, and battles that could leave the streets shook. Fans are torn between loyalty and fear. Online, it's memes and hot takes, but in the real world, insiders are whispering about how this could spiral into something no one can contain. The lines have been drawn, the gloves are off, and the next move could set off a chain reaction that neither side wants, but both are ready for. Tonight, we break down the secret history, the hidden slights, and the incidents that have turned this rap rivalry into a full-blown street war waiting to happen. Strap in, because the 21 Savage and NBA YoungBoy beef isn't just music, it's a ticking time bomb, and the countdown has already started. It all started quietly, almost like whispers in the streets. Nobody really noticed at first, just some subtle shots in songs, cryptic Instagram posts, and fans reading between the lines. But anyone familiar with the game knows when two young kings like 21 Savage and NBA YoungBoy throw even a hint of shade, it never stays quiet for long. Atlanta and Baton Rouge aren't just cities, they're breeding grounds for loyalty, pride, and vendettas that stretch far beyond the music industry. And that's exactly where this beef began, simmering under the surface, unnoticed by mainstream media, but glaringly obvious to anyone living in the streets and following the moves closely. 21 Savage had been in his lane, quietly stacking his empire while maintaining the reputation of a street general turned global artist. But it's in his DNA to not let disrespect slide. Something subtle in YoungBoy's verse, just a line, just a bar, just enough to spark suspicion, was all it took to light the fuse. Rumors began spreading fast that YoungBoy had been making veiled threats, referencing situations only someone in the streets would understand. Sources close to both camps say there were meetings, texts, and calls between entourages, all tense, all calculating, as each side gauged the other's reaction. The thing about 21 Savage is that he's strategic. He doesn't move out of anger, he moves out of necessity, out of survival instinct honed on the cold streets of Atlanta. There's a level of precision in his approach, a cold-blooded calculation that fans mistake for detachment. But insiders say he's been aware of NBA YoungBoy's rise for a minute, aware of the street credibility YoungBoy carries in the South. And for someone like 21, respect isn't just earned with music, it's earned with influence, connections, and the unspoken understanding that crossing him comes with consequences you can't undo. YoungBoy, on the other hand, has a reputation that precedes him. Baton Rouge raised him to be defiant, relentless, and unafraid. He's had his share of legal issues, altercations, and run-ins with people who tried to underestimate him. While 21 Savage moves like a chess player, YoungBoy moves like a soldier in the middle of chaos, aggressive, unpredictable, and always ready for retaliation. Fans online love to play it up as just rap beef, but those in the streets knew better. When these two collide, it's never just about who can spit the hardest bar, it's about who's willing to defend their name and their crew at all costs. Social media was the first visible battleground. Posts that seemed innocent to the casual observer were loaded with subtext, emojis, symbols, and references that only insiders understood. Clips of YoungBoy flexing with his team, shots of 21 Savage rolling deep in Atlanta, small jabs hidden in captions, subtle looks in music videos, it was all a signal. And the streets caught on immediately. Hip-hop forums lit up, YouTube commentators dissected every clip, and fans speculated endlessly, trying to piece together a feud that wasn't officially public yet. But in reality, the tension was off the charts. Word on the street is that both sides had eyes on each other long before anything went public. 21 Savage's camp reportedly gathered intel, checking movements, tracking appearances, and making sure nothing happened in Atlanta without their knowledge. Similarly, YoungBoy's team was keeping tabs on his Atlanta counterpart, ensuring their man wasn't being disrespected or outmaneuvered. These weren't casual rivalries anymore. They were calculated, like two generals surveying a battlefield before the first shot is fired. And then came the incidents that made things impossible to ignore. A minor scuffle outside a studio in Atlanta made headlines in underground circles. Details are murky, but sources say it involved a close associate of YoungBoy showing up where he wasn't welcome, tensions flaring instantly. Nobody got seriously hurt, but the message was clear. Boundaries were being tested, and both camps were ready to escalate if necessary. Music became the next weapon. Lyrics dropped with subtle diss, references to past incidents, and threats that only those who knew the backstory could decode. Rap fans online debated endlessly, but in the streets, these were signals, not opinions. Some say it's the history of both men that makes this situation so volatile. 21 Savage survived the brutal streets of East Atlanta, facing threats from rival crews, law enforcement, and even betrayal from those closest to him. NBA YoungBoy came from a turbulent background in Baton Rouge, where violence was a language and loyalty was everything. When two men molded by these conditions clash, it's more than music, it's ego, pride, and survival. Neither will back down, and neither side is used to losing. Insiders also hint at the involvement of associates who aren't afraid to make moves. Both artists are surrounded by crews who take these situations personally. Loyalty in the streets isn't just a concept, it's enforced, sometimes violently. Those close to 21 are said to have reminded him of past incidents where hesitation cost people dearly. YoungBoy's team reportedly reacted the same way, emphasizing that any slight would be answered immediately. Every public post, every Instagram story, every cryptic line in a verse wasn't just content. It was a statement, a warning, and a challenge. While the mainstream media focused on catchy headlines and viral clips, the real story was playing out far from cameras. Meetings behind closed doors, calls in encrypted apps, and subtle reconnaissance were happening every day. The tension was no longer just speculation, it was anticipation, and anyone connected to the southern rap scene could feel the electricity. People began to understand that this wasn't just another rap spat. It had the potential to go beyond music, beyond social media, and straight into real-life consequences. And as the streets watched, both 21 Savage and NBA YoungBoy seemed aware of the stakes. Every move was deliberate, every post strategic. Neither could afford to slip, and neither could show weakness. What began as veiled disses escalated into a situation that could only go one way if it continued: full confrontation. The fans debated, the rappers posted, and the crews waited in the shadows, knowing that when these two forces finally clash, it won't just be newsworthy, it will be dangerous. The foundation of this beef is built on respect, reputation, and retaliation. It's a clash between two men who grew up in environments that demanded toughness, cunning, and survival instincts. And now, with social media amplifying every minor action into a headline, the pressure has multiplied. The stage is set, the players are in position, and what comes next could define careers, reputations, and maybe even lives. This is the moment when a rivalry stops being entertainment and becomes a full-blown street war, and the streets know it. Things started to escalate faster than anyone anticipated. What was once subtle online jabs and veiled references in music quickly became tangible tension in the streets. Both camps began to treat this feud like a chess match, but with far higher stakes than any board game. Every move mattered, every post mattered, and every rumor had the potential to spark real-world consequences. Insiders say that by the time YoungBoy dropped his next track, 21 Savage's camp had already dissected every bar, analyzing word choice, tone, and even who was in the video with him. Nothing was overlooked. Nothing could be overlooked. Atlanta and Baton Rouge fans started to take sides publicly, turning the online landscape into a virtual war zone. The comment sections under posts became battlefields, where each fanbase defended their artist with fiery loyalty. Social media platforms became a mirror of the streets, messages about loyalty, pride, and retribution flying back and forth. It didn't take long for the tension to spill offline. A source close to YoungBoy revealed that some members of his crew were already preparing for any potential encounter in Atlanta, while 21 Savage's team wasn't sleeping either. Security was tightened, movements were monitored, and every appearance became a potential flashpoint. The music continued to escalate the beef. 21 Savage, always tactical, dropped subtle lines in features that weren't explicitly aimed at YoungBoy, but those who knew the backstory understood exactly who he was addressing. YoungBoy fired back, his lyrics sharp and personal, referencing loyalty, betrayal, and the streets he came from. Fans dissected each verse, looking for hidden meanings, but the real understanding existed only between the insiders. Every track, every snippet, every unreleased verse was a message in code. And just like that, the online rap battle became a tense prelude to real-world confrontation. Rumors started circulating that both artists' entourages were scouting locations, checking out venues, and monitoring each other's schedules. The streets were alive with whispers that any public appearance could turn into an altercation. Sources from Atlanta claimed that some members of 21 Savage's circle started confronting anyone they suspected of being aligned with YoungBoy's crew. Likewise, YoungBoy's associates weren't holding back. They were reminding everyone around him that disrespect wouldn't be tolerated, that retaliation was always an option. Insiders say the environment was tense, heavy, and volatile, with everyone aware that the next spark could ignite a blaze nobody could contain. At the center of it all were the men themselves. 21 Savage remained calm on the surface, posting memes and jokes, but there was a steely resolve in his eyes whenever he appeared in public. People close to him say he was constantly strategizing, making sure that no threat to his reputation or safety went unchecked. He didn't seek unnecessary conflict, but when someone challenged his name, he acted like a predator who had spotted prey, calculated, deliberate, and patient, but ready to strike if provoked. On the other side, YoungBoy carried the aggression of someone who grew up defending every inch of turf he claimed. He was fiery, impulsive, and protective of his legacy, and those traits only amplified the tension between him and 21 Savage. Some insiders claim there were near confrontations that never made it to social media. A studio session here, a private appearance there. Both camps reportedly crossed paths but were separated by security at the last moment. The streets buzzed with speculation, and videos of tense exchanges began leaking online. Fans obsessed over every glance, every gesture, trying to interpret who was smiling too much, who was ignoring who. For people outside the streets, it might have seemed like drama, but for those involved, it was real, and it was serious. Meanwhile, the media began noticing the tension, trying to frame it as another rap beef, but the insiders knew better. This wasn't about streaming numbers or publicity, it was about respect, pride, and personal vendettas that ran deep. Both 21 Savage and YoungBoy had histories of facing violence and betrayal, and anyone with knowledge of their past understood that this feud could escalate beyond entertainment at any moment. Every post online, every subtle diss in a verse, and every public appearance was a piece in a larger high-stakes game. The influence of their respective crews cannot be overstated. Both entourages have deep roots in the streets and a willingness to enforce loyalty. Sources say that members of 21 Savage's team reminded him of old Atlanta codes. Never back down, never show weakness, and always respond when disrespected. YoungBoy's crew operated under similar principles, emphasizing that disrespect must be answered immediately, or it would be seen as weakness. These principles made the beef more dangerous than anything that could be explained in mainstream headlines. It wasn't just a feud, it was a test of influence, power, and street credibility. Insiders also hinted at potential alliances forming behind the scenes. Other Southern rappers and crews were allegedly being asked to choose sides, either openly or discreetly. These alliances could make a confrontation even more explosive. The streets in both Atlanta and Baton Rouge were buzzing with speculation. Who would support who would stay neutral, and who would act as the wild card that could tip the balance? The dynamics were shifting constantly, like a powder keg waiting for a spark. The tension began seeping into performances and public events. 21 Savage's concerts reportedly saw increased security, with his team watching for any sign of YoungBoy's associates. YoungBoy's shows were no different. Insiders said extra precautions were taken to prevent any unexpected encounters. Despite all this, rumors persisted that minor altercations had already occurred in underground circles, off-camera confrontations that fueled the narrative and increased the anticipation of a major clash. Even social media fans could sense the danger. Memes and hot takes couldn't mask the seriousness of the situation. Comment sections were filled with debates not about music, but about loyalty, strategy, and potential outcomes. People speculated endlessly about when the first major confrontation would happen, and some even feared it could escalate into something violent. But both 21 Savage and YoungBoy seemed to feed off this energy, carefully playing their cards, letting tension build while ensuring neither side appeared weak. At this point, the beef had reached a level where it was no longer just entertainment, it was a looming street war. Both artists were aware of what was at stake: reputation, loyalty, and personal safety. They moved strategically, but their history in the streets suggested that a single misstep could trigger an irreparable chain reaction. Those closest to them said the atmosphere was thick with anticipation, and everyone involved understood the unspoken truth. When two forces like 21 Savage and NBA YoungBoy collide, the outcome could be deadly. This wasn't just a rap story anymore. It was real, it was dangerous, and the streets knew it. Every action, every lyric, every post was a message, and both sides were reading carefully. One wrong move, one misinterpreted comment, or one accidental encounter could spark an escalation that nobody could control. And as the fans watched, as the media reported, and as both camps prepared, one thing became clear: this beef had left the music world behind. It had crossed into the streets, and now it was a ticking time bomb that everyone was watching, waiting, and bracing for the inevitable explosion. The tension between 21 Savage and NBA YoungBoy had reached a point where no move was too small to be analyzed, no gesture too subtle to be overlooked. Everything was under a microscope: studio sessions, interviews, public appearances, even private messages that somehow leaked to the streets. The smallest slip could be interpreted as disrespect, and in this environment, disrespect didn't just lead to words, it could lead to consequences. The streets were talking, insiders were watching, and both camps were sharpening their strategies like soldiers preparing for an inevitable clash. 21 Savage's approach remained methodical, a reflection of his survival instincts honed in the heart of East Atlanta. He rarely acted without a plan, and every public appearance was calculated. His crew, loyal and experienced, had eyes everywhere, watching, reporting, and ensuring no threat went unnoticed. Sources say that even casual interactions at clubs, events, or studios were being monitored, with both sides aware that a single confrontation could spiral out of control. Social media posts, seemingly innocent to the casual fan, were loaded with signals only insiders could decode. Every smile, every nod, every caption mattered, and both sides knew it. NBA YoungBoy, however, carried a different energy. Baton Rouge had forged him into a relentless force, someone who didn't back down and wasn't afraid to respond immediately to any perceived slight. Unlike 21 Savage, whose approach was tactical and measured, YoungBoy operated with intensity and urgency. He was surrounded by a crew just as fiery as he was, and insiders say they were prepared to act at the first sign of disrespect. Every verse he dropped, every post he shared, every public interaction was a declaration. He wasn't backing down, and anyone who crossed him would feel the consequences. Rumors of private encounters began to circulate, creating a palpable tension in both cities. Sources claimed that brief run-ins had almost escalated into violent confrontations, but were diffused at the last moment by security or strategic retreats. These incidents were whispered about in underground circles, adding fuel to the fire and heightening the stakes. Fans began speculating endlessly, dissecting every clip, every interview, every line in a verse, trying to predict what would happen next. But the people who truly understood the situation knew that the real drama was unfolding away from the cameras, in the streets where respect and reputation meant everything. Music continued to serve as a battlefield, with subtle diss and layered references exchanged through tracks and features. 21 Savage had a way of embedding messages in his music that only certain listeners could fully understand. Every bar carried weight, history, and context, and insiders say his team spent hours ensuring the meaning would reach YoungBoy's circle without overexposing himself. YoungBoy responded in kind, his tracks cutting deep with references to loyalty, betrayal, and past street encounters. Each song became a move in an intricate game of psychological warfare, a way to assert dominance without physical confrontation, but the threat of violence always lingered in the background. Both camps were also rumored to be expanding their networks in response to the beef. Other Southern artists, crew members, and influencers were quietly being asked to choose sides, either as allies or neutral observers. Allegiances were shifting constantly, with each move potentially altering the balance of power. People in the streets understood that these alliances mattered. Even a neutral party could tip the scales if they inadvertently intervened. The situation had evolved from a two-man conflict to a regional concern, with the entire Southern rap community watching, waiting, and preparing. Security became a top priority. Concerts, appearances, and studio sessions were no longer casual events. They were operations with multiple layers of protection. Both 21 Savage and YoungBoy reportedly had surveillance teams monitoring the other's movements, making sure nothing went unnoticed. Sources claim that minor incidents involving associates escalated tension even further, with each side interpreting the slightest action as a potential threat. The streets were buzzing, and the message was clear. No one could underestimate the volatility of this situation. Insiders say there were moments when the beef could have exploded into something deadly, but careful maneuvering kept it contained, for now. Studio sessions ended early, public appearances were tightly controlled, and private meetings were conducted with extreme caution. Yet the sense of inevitability lingered. Everyone involved knew that a single misstep, one wrong post, one unexpected encounter, one word taken the wrong way, could ignite a confrontation that neither side could control. The tension was like a live wire, humming with energy and danger. The psychological aspect of the feud also played a major role. Both artists are masters of perception, understanding how to manipulate public opinion while maintaining their image. 21 Savage's calculated silence and cryptic posts created intrigue and tension, making fans and outsiders speculate endlessly. YoungBoy's intensity and impulsive energy added unpredictability, keeping 21 Savage's team on alert. The combination of strategy and volatility created a perfect storm, with every interaction a test of nerves, loyalty, and street credibility. In addition to the direct tension between the two artists, their entourages became major players in the narrative. Members of 21 Savage's crew reportedly reminded him of past experiences where hesitation or miscalculation had dire consequences. YoungBoy's associates were equally vocal, emphasizing the need for swift action to defend his honor and reputation. This constant reinforcement from loyal crew members ensured that neither artist would back down, and every perceived slight became magnified. The streets weren't just watching, they were participants in a high-stakes game of loyalty, respect, and retaliation. Meanwhile, fans and media outlets speculated endlessly, framing the feud as a rap beef, without fully understanding the underlying stakes. For insiders, this wasn't about publicity or attention. It was about pride, survival, and influence. Both 21 Savage and YoungBoy had been tested in the streets before, and both knew that reputation was fragile, sometimes more valuable than money or fame. A single moment of weakness could be fatal, and both sides were hyper-aware of the consequences of failure. The escalation was also fueled by the history of each artist. 21 Savage had survived countless threats in Atlanta, learning the importance of patience, intelligence, and decisive action. NBA YoungBoy had endured violent confrontations and betrayals in Baton Rouge, building a mindset of relentless defense and assertive retaliation. When two men molded by such intense street experiences clash, the results are unpredictable and potentially dangerous. The energy surrounding the feud wasn't just hype, it was a reflection of real street dynamics, real risk, and real consequences. As the streets buzzed and fans speculated, both 21 Savage and NBA YoungBoy understood that the next move could define everything. Whether through music, appearances, or covert maneuvers, the tension was reaching a boiling point. Every post, every lyric, every interaction was a calculated move in a larger game. And while the public watched for entertainment, the insiders knew that when these two forces finally crossed paths without barriers, the result could be catastrophic. The feud was no longer just about music. It was about control, respect, and survival in a world where every decision carried real stakes. By now, the streets were electric with anticipation. Everyone from Atlanta to Baton Rouge was talking about the feud between 21 Savage and NBA YoungBoy, and the chatter wasn't just online. It had spread into the neighborhoods, the clubs, and the studio circles where the real players operate. Every sighting, every post, every verse was being scrutinized, and the smallest movement could be interpreted as a provocation. The energy was toxic, and the tension was tangible, like a pressure cooker waiting for the lid to blow. 21 Savage had been moving like a general for weeks, calculating every step. Sources close to him say that every studio session, every video shoot, and even casual hangouts were coordinated with precision. His team monitored the streets, watched the movements of YoungBoy's camp, and ensured there were no surprises. His approach was methodical, strike when necessary, but never act without strategy. Yet the anticipation of an actual confrontation was constant, and those around him could feel the weight of potential chaos in every decision. YoungBoy, on the other hand, carried an intensity that could ignite the smallest spark. He was unpredictable, and that unpredictability made him dangerous. His circle reportedly reinforced that any perceived slight had to be addressed immediately, and his movements were often impulsive but calculated enough to send a message. People in his camp emphasized loyalty, reminding him that backing down or appearing weak could shift the balance of power. It wasn't just about pride, it was about survival, reputation, and sending a message that crossing him had consequences. Rumors of near misses began circulating in underground circles. Sources claim that YoungBoy was spotted near Atlanta for a private session, while 21 Savage's team was reportedly aware of his presence. Security teams on both sides allegedly intervened to prevent an explosive encounter. These close calls, though never made public, intensified the fear and respect between the two camps. Every insider knew it was only a matter of time before the tension erupted. One wrong move and the streets could witness something irreversible. Music remained a key battlefield. Both artists released tracks with veiled messages that escalated the feud, making sure the other side, and their crews, understood the intent. 21 Savage's lyrics hinted at vigilance, street wisdom, and readiness, while YoungBoy fired back with verses dripping in aggression, calling out loyalty and territorial respect. Fans speculated endlessly, dissecting each line, but the real understanding existed only in the circles that lived and breathed this life. For them, these songs weren't entertainment. They were declarations, warnings, and psychological warfare. Allies on both sides began to take positions. Reports emerged that other Southern rappers, crew members, and even affiliated street groups were being consulted, or pressured, to choose sides. Those who tried to remain neutral were often subtly reminded that neutrality might not be an option if things escalated. The entire Southern hip-hop scene was watching closely, and every indirect involvement added to the tension. A confrontation wasn't just about two artists anymore. It had the potential to draw in multiple crews, turning a feud into something much bigger and far more dangerous. The psychological stakes couldn't be ignored. 21 Savage and NBA YoungBoy both understood the power of perception. 21's calm and calculated demeanor contrasted with YoungBoy's fiery energy, creating a volatile dynamic that kept both sides guessing. Every interaction, whether online or in person, was a test of nerves and strategy. Sources say both camps were constantly analyzing body language, social media posts, and even offhand comments, treating them as intelligence. The tension wasn't just physical, it was mental, a high-stakes game where a misread signal could trigger escalation. There were also whispers of potential confrontations at public events, but security and strategic planning kept things in check, for now. Reports suggest that even casual events, like studio visits and meet and greets, were treated as high-risk operations. Each entourage was armed with information, and every member was instructed to be vigilant. The streets were acutely aware that one spontaneous move could ignite a full-blown altercation, and both camps seemed ready to react at a moment's notice. Meanwhile, social media continued to stoke the fire. Cryptic posts, emojis, and videos from fans or associates became evidence for speculation. Even casual interactions were dissected for hidden meanings, and every leaked clip was amplified by commentary from both supporters and rivals. In the street world, perception is power, and both 21 Savage and YoungBoy were acutely aware of the influence these signals had. A post could validate loyalty, intimidate opponents, or even provoke retaliation. Every move was a statement, every word a calculated risk. The history of each artist added depth to the tension. 21 Savage had endured real-life violence, betrayals, and threats in Atlanta, giving him the patience and foresight to navigate dangerous situations. YoungBoy's upbringing in Baton Rouge hardened him into someone who reacts decisively to disrespect. When these backgrounds collide, it's not just a clash of music styles, it's a clash of survival instincts, territorial pride, and egos that refuse to yield. Insiders suggest that this mutual understanding of danger is part of why the feud has remained so intense yet contained. Both sides know the cost of escalation. Despite the high stakes, the potential for an explosive showdown seemed inevitable. Sources indicate that both artists were aware that a confrontation could define careers, reputations, and even personal safety. Every interaction, whether a studio session, an appearance, or a social media post, carried weight. The beef had moved beyond music, beyond entertainment. It had become a live wire, a high-stakes tension that required constant vigilance. One misstep could spark retaliation that would ripple through crews, fans, and the streets alike. Reports from insiders also hinted at strategic communication between the camps, perhaps to prevent an unplanned clash, but these measures didn't ease the tension. If anything, the awareness of each other's movements amplified the psychological warfare, creating paranoia and suspicion on both sides. Every meeting, every message, every appearance was a potential test, and everyone involved was aware of the stakes. The streets could feel the intensity, and those close to the situation knew that patience was running thin. The energy surrounding the feud was so intense that even casual fans and outsiders could sense it. Conversations in clubs, street corners, and online forums reflected concern, fascination, and fear. People weren't just rooting for one side. They were watching history in motion, understanding that when these two forces finally collide, it could be catastrophic. And while both 21 Savage and YoungBoy were masters of controlling their image, insiders insist that the underlying tension was as real as it gets, with loyalty, pride, and survival hanging in the balance. At this point, the narrative had shifted. What started as online jabs and subtle disses had grown into a full-blown war of perception, strategy, and street influence. Music, social media, and public appearances were all tools in this escalating conflict, each move carefully measured to assert dominance, test loyalty, or provoke the other side. The streets were no longer spectators. They were participants in a tense waiting game, aware that any sudden move could set off a chain reaction with serious consequences. The consensus among insiders was clear. This feud was about to reach its breaking point. Both artists had proven their resilience, influence, and ability to navigate dangerous situations. But with tension so high, the risk of something uncontrollable happening was unavoidable. The streets could feel it, the fans could feel it, and both 21 Savage and NBA YoungBoy were living it every day. The stage was set, the energy was palpable, and the potential for disaster had never been higher. This beef isn't just entertainment anymore. It's a real, breathing tension that has the streets watching every move, every post, every verse. 21 Savage and NBA YoungBoy aren't just artists. They're symbols of loyalty, respect, and survival in a world where every action carries weight. And now, with the energy so high and the lines drawn so clearly, there's no turning back. Whether you're a fan, a casual observer, or someone living in the cities where this feud runs deep, one thing is undeniable. The next move could change everything. So here's the question: what happens next? Will this remain a war of words, subliminal bars, and coded posts, or are we inching closer to something that spills out of the studio and into the streets? Every time one of them drops a track, posts a story, or appears in public, the pressure ratchets higher. Fans are glued to their screens, social media is buzzing non-stop, and insiders whisper about encounters that could erupt at any moment. The anticipation is unbearable, and that's exactly what makes this feud so dangerous and so compelling. If you've been following from the beginning, you know that 21 Savage and NBA YoungBoy don't play games lightly. Respect is everything, and both men have been shaped by environments that demand toughness, intelligence, and instinct. That's why this feud is different from anything you've seen. It's real, it's personal, and it carries consequences far beyond music charts. Every lyric, every move, every subtle glance is part of a high-stakes dance where one wrong step could set off a chain reaction that nobody can control. For fans of the culture, this is a moment to watch closely. Share your thoughts, debate your theories, and keep your eyes on the streets and the music alike. Because when the next chapter of this saga unfolds, you'll want to know every detail. The story of 21 Savage and NBA YoungBoy isn't just about bars or streams. It's about loyalty, street credibility, and survival. The countdown is on, and the streets are waiting. Stay tuned, stay alert, and never underestimate the intensity of two forces like this colliding. This isn't just rap drama, it's real life, and the fallout could be legendary.